Good morning. I wanted to share with you today something that hopefully, if you take it to heart, may prevent tremendous legal problems in your professional career, which of course is my hope. I'm going to talk to you today about the most common legal mistakes that people make. And believe me, those are something that you want to avoid at all cost. The reason for that is that it can be extremely costly to your clients that you'll be seeing. It'll be costly to you personally if mistakes result in a lawsuit, court involvement, the BBS, and it will also be a costly mistake for the profession because a mistake that one of us makes, the word I like is besmirches or contaminates or negatively impacts all of us in the profession. So I'm going to talk to you about these areas. The most frequent legal problems that fall in the area of unprofessional conduct, failure to conform to the reporting laws, behavior that is below the standard of care, what a reasonably competent therapist would do in a similar set of circumstances, omitting consent to treat, and it also falls into the area of omitting informed consent. And those are covered in both of our texts, and I think you'll find it helpful and illuminating. Another legal pitfall is when we inadvertently or sometimes even on purpose abandon clients. And it's very tricky when we get into multiple relationships with clients. And then finally, when we practice beyond our competency. In the area of unprofessional conduct, I've shared with you that if you go to the Board of Behavioral Sciences and in the search bar, you put laws and regulations, or I think it says statutes and regulations relating to mental health professionals, you're going to get almost a 300-page document. It's free to download, but it will be a giant book that includes the laws and regulations that will impact you as a mental health professional. Chapter 14 is the chapter that illuminates licensed clinical social workers. And as you go through that chapter, you will see all of the specifics about unprofessional conduct, and it is worth your reading and reading carefully. There will also be a vignette that you will need to work on this semester, and knowing how to find the unprofessional conduct codes will help you be successful in that vignette. The reporting laws, you absolutely have to know what the reporting laws are related to suspected child abuse and neglect, suspected elder abuse, suspected dependent and adult abuse, and also when a client you're seeing is a danger to themselves or makes threats against other people. And there are very specific things that you need to do and timelines, reports that you'll have to write, as well as in the area of when when you see someone who's a danger to someone else, you will have to take steps to notify them. No, the idea of standard of care is a little bit challenging because there's not a book that says this is what standard of care is in particular situations. But it's an imaginary line of behavior that a reasonably competent social worker would do in a similar set of circumstances. And if you get into legal trouble, your actions are going to be measured against this elusive, perhaps hard to define standard of care. So what you need to do is when you get into difficult situations, consult, consult, consult. Consult with your supervisor, with peers, consult the literature, and document that you've done this. And that will help to assure that you've fallen within the standard of care, not below. And certainly, it's wonderful to aim higher than simply the standard. When you omit informed consent, that's a legal error. And ethically, clients have a right to know what you're proposing in terms of treatment, what the expected benefits and risks might be, and if there are alternatives. They have a right to know that you're a therapist in training and that you're under supervision. And you have an obligation to let them know that they can make choices, that we're not in the business of shoving treatments down their throat. They have a right to refuse treatment, even a right to stop treatment altogether. And this falls into that area of one of the pillars of ethical treatment, which is to protect the client's right to self-determination. You need to make sure that your clients are capable of understanding what you're telling them. You need to share with them about a whole myriad of things, documentation, appointments, missed appointments, money, insurance. They also have a right to know about you and your education and training so that they, in fact, have been informed about, as you can see here, a number of things that will help them make a determination of whether or not to consent to the treatment that you're offering. And this comes from the law, ethical codes, and the standard of care. We definitely have an obligation to avoid abandonment, because that is a specific form of malpractice that can occur in the context of a mental health professional terminating services. And it occurs either when a social worker is unavailable or precipitously discontinues service to a client that is in need. Very important to pay attention to that. And dual relationships. That means when you have one or more, I don't mean one or more, when you have two or more roles that exist between you and a client. Dual relationships are when the client is a friend, a fellow student, family member, lover, employee, or business associate of the therapist. And that is something that we need to avoid at all costs. And it's important to know, finally, that you need to be performing your duties as a therapist within your level of competency. And that's determined by three things: education, training, and experience. And when we practice beyond what we're capable of and competent in, we can get into understandable legal trouble. But there's good news in addition to all this bad news. There are protective factors. Protect you against lawsuits, against clients being very upset about what you're doing or not doing. One of the best things you can do is keep monitoring the alliance that you have with your clients and keep building that to make sure it's strong and resilient. If you're having a challenging case, make sure that you're consulting, that you're seeking supervision. Be open and honest about the mistakes you're making. And for sure, I want you to take the study of law and ethics seriously. It's one of the best protective factors that you could employ. And ultimately, we need to be able to hold our clients' best interest high. So I hope this has been helpful, and I look forward to talking with you about this.